February 1st, 2023 edition. Wow, start of Black History Month. February 1st, 2023 edition of the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series, brought to you by the National Urban League. I'm your host, Kenneth L. Johnson, president of the Harlem, New York-based diversity recruitment firm, East Coast Executives. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. The Digital Career Success Series, DCSS, is a professional development series that helps members of our Urban League Young Professional chapters and other diverse job seekers develop new skill sets that will enhance their careers through digital platforms such as webinars, Facebook, and Instagram Live. The goal is to provide an opportunity for professional development right from one's computer. If you want to hear more information or receive more information, visit nuljobsnetwork.com. All right, I'm really excited about today's show. I think it was Wanda Jackson who told me once an urban leaguer, always an urban leaguer. So with that being said, we have some people that I know have some urban league experience in their background. Today's DCSS is Resume Refresh, featuring Curtis Cox, founder, CEO, and career empowerment coach at Curtis Careers, LLC. And I know we have the slide up for Yolanda McCleary, founder, CEO, resume writer, and career coach at Yolanda McCleary Career Coaching. All right, Yolanda, listen, we're gonna focus in on you right now.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, you shared with me that back in about, well, know what? We won't date it. We'll just put it back.
I'm 21 now.
A few years back, you started an internship. Your first internship in PR was with the Urban League of Philadelphia. Shout out to Philly. Hey, listen, coming up, if you got the Eagles, put it in the chat. If you got the Chiefs, put it in the chat.
Let's go, Eagles. Let's go.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. This is certainly a full circle moment. I was sharing, I was an intern, and I was a horrible intern, and I got fired. But what I learned is what not to do. And so that has kind of, on my own career journey has kind of what led me to being a career coach and taking all of those mistakes and working with young adults and career changers. And so putting all that together and really helping them find their passion, their purpose, and transition. So excited to share how storytelling can help you to do that on your resume.
Man, that's amazing. We're looking forward to hearing from you and also your co-panelist today, Mr. Curtis Cox. Curtis, we're going to get to you later, but right now I just want to do the intro. Brooklyn is definitely in the building. Curtis came through, helped me out on a webinar a few years back. This was prior to the pandemic, I think, with the New York Urban League. Shout out to Diana over there for helping me put that together, and CEO and founder Arva Rice over there, CEO and president Arva Rice over there. But Curtis has been a New York Urban League supporter as well, and Yolanda's been a Philly Urban League supporter. Curtis, what's good?
What's going on, brother, man? I'm glad to be here. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation, man. And shout outs to the Urban League, and shout outs to all of you all for setting this up, man. I love sessions like this. It's a great way to collab. It's a great way to even learn, even though we're the guest speakers. I always look at these opportunities as learning experiences, even for myself, for my own career, for my own brand. So appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all.
Man, I'm excited to have you both on, man. We're going to learn and grow today for sure on the National Urban League Digital Career Success Series, UL Jobs Network platform. So listen, I'm going to step back and quit talking. I'll probably come in and check in on y'all from here and now, but I want to pass it over to Yolanda. Let's go.
All right, let's go. So resume storytelling. We're going to use a method called the WHO method. And there's a lot of different methods that you can use, but one really to show something that is easy, that you can remember, and that is practical. So when we think about resume storytelling, it's really important that you remember, right, that humbleness and confidence can live in the same space. And if you are not promoting yourself, and if you're not sharing your story, you're not giving the employers and the recruiters an opportunity to learn who you are and know how you can impact them. So the WHO method for storytelling is how we're going to show you how to do that. So we can go to the next slide. So most times for my students at Year Up, shout out to Year Up if you're familiar with that, the clients that I work with, or even on LinkedIn, if you're on LinkedIn, it's hundreds of thousands of people saying how they're applying and they're not getting roles. No one's calling me. I've done all the things that I need to do. I'm editing my resume, but I'm still not getting the calls. So how can we solve that? That's what we're here to talk about. So let's go into the solution. First of all, the real problem is some people are not really clear 100% on what their next role is. So I know it's a thing. Some people say, Kenneth and everyone, like, I just want anything. I want to apply to, I'm just looking for a job right now. But that's not helpful, because if you're everything to everyone, then you're nothing to anyone, really, right? Because you can't be jack of all trades on a resume.
Hey, repeat that again for me. Repeat that again for me. If you're everything
to everyone, then you are no one to anyone.
Nice.
Because no one knows, right, what you can do for them, how you specifically solve their problems, what have been some of your accomplishments. If you're applying to 3 different roles, you need to have 3 different resumes sharing 3 different stories about who you are and how you've contributed. So that's number one, is really get clear on the industry and the roles that you want. And again, I suggest people have about 2 to 3 options. And but that's really goes to the next point of understanding what your marketable skill set is. So whether you take career assessments, whether you go on different, I know ONET has some free ones, whether you've taken some ones from your career, you really need to understand, like, what skills do I have that people want and are going to pay me for? So,
you know, I've always found that when people are doing a self-assessment, I think they sell themselves short somewhat.
All the time.
I think it's great to talk to other people that maybe are coworkers, colleagues, even family members, just to inquire about what they view as your most marketable skills, and also to take assessments. Like you spoke about ONET, but there are plenty of assessments that you can find throughout the internet that offer just a general overview of what your skill sets are. So that's a great idea.
Absolutely. And so to that point, Kenneth, right, reach out to 10 people who you trust and say, can you give me a list of how I've impacted you, maybe how you've seen me show up in spaces, and then you can gather all of those responses, and then there should be some trends and ideas that pop up from those responses. So that's also an activity that you can do. And then once you get that, you know where you're going, right? Because you have the industry, you have the jobs, you know what skills that are marketable. Then that goes into now, how do you share the right story? And honestly, you're going to look at the job description, okay? The job description is going to tell you essentially who you need to be. It's like I say, for example, it's like ordering a pizza. If I say I want pepperonis and sausages, I want a pepperoni and sausage pizza. Yes, pepperoni and beef may be good. Yes, some people like pineapples, but I didn't ask for that. I want a pepperoni and sausage. And so that's what you need to remember about looking at the job description and crafting the right story for the right employer and for the right role. So just give them what they're asking for.
You know, I think that's great feedback. You know, what I found, people are using like the STAR technique, right? To tell their story, and, you know, they're following the situation, task, action, result format, but it allows them to take the reader on a journey that shows how they add value. So I think the storytelling piece is really important. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. And the WHO method is very similar, right? And so we can go right into that to really show how do you begin to create these stories. And again, you're going to have multiple stories based on the different roles you're going into. So what I suggest doing, and I know we're going to talk about that, is having a rolling resume of all your wins and all your successes that you want to share, and then using the job description and what they're looking for to identify which stories you're going to put on the resume. So it's okay to know all of your strengths and skill sets, but if the job is specifically, let's say, project management, well, then you want to share all the stories about projects, and we're going to show you how to do that you've managed. So we can go to the next slide, please. So the first thing you want to do is you want to revise your bullet points, right? And you want to show your skills. You want to show the value that you bring. You want to show any numbers. You want to show any successes that you've been able to do. And again, you're going to base that off of the resume. And the reason why that's so important, and I know Curtis is going to talk about that, because it's the applicant tracking system. And so if you're not sharing the right stories and if you're not using the right words, you're not going to get passed, right? So we're going to use the job description, and we can go to the next slide to show you how we're going to put the who method into place. All right, so here's how we're going to do it. You're going to start each bullet with an action verb. And if you look in the chat, the action verbs are like powerful words, right? Words that are going to get people excited to continue to read what you did. You can pick them out by job categories, by accomplishment. So produced, executed, established, streamlined. These are going to be the words that are going to set the tone again for your story. Because again, with any story, you want it to be juicy, you want it to be exciting, you want people to read it. And so you want to start with that powerful action verb. The next is the who method, and you're going to create evidence-based stories. And so let's jump into the W. What does the W mean? You're going to tell me what you did. So provided clerical support, you're going to talk about maybe any projects, provided coaching, provided program management. So what specifically did you do? And anytime, again, you can add a number. Anytime you can show how many, how much, you're going to be in a good place. So the first W is what did you do, okay? We can go to the H. Now you're going to tell me how you did it. So what skills did you use? Was it problem solving? Was it data analytics? Was it any Salesforce systems? Was it a positive attitude? Was it problem solving? So you're going to combine what did you do? And you're going to tell us in that same sentence how you did it. So let's say again, provided clerical support using Microsoft Office, Excel, and Salesforce, just for example. So that's how you would set that up, that sentence. Let's go to the O. Next, you're going to want to talk about outcome, right? People don't care. Like the question I always ask people when writing their resumes is like, why should they care? So at the end of you write this nice bullet, right? Why should they care that you provided this support? It's all going to be about proving your outcomes, proving what success is. What did you streamline? What did you improve? What did you decrease? And then any way you can use a number for that is going to be great, because that's going to show capacity. And what I mean by capacity is, okay, so we're using the admin example. There may be hundreds of admins, but what's going to set you apart from others is maybe the capacity of patients you helped or the capacity of the people that you supported. So numbers impact outcomes. That's the O. And then we're going to put it all together. This is a really long example. You don't have to use this, but it just says, again, that action verb. So you want to engage what? Engage prospective clients. How? Using professional and positive communication via email and social media tools. That's all the how. So what? Engage clients. How? Positive communication, email, social media tools. And what was the result? To serve an ongoing resource to build relationships. So that's how you want to tell the story about what did you do, how did you do it, and the outcome. And again, you're going to base this off of what? How are you going to base your stories? Off of what the company is asking for. So if they didn't ask for it, don't share it.
I love it. I love it. I love that who method as well.
So that's pretty, yes, a simple way to do it. And you can do this for a variety of different roles and a variety of different examples. What I would suggest you think about is like, what are 10 accomplishments that I've done in this role? Or maybe 5. What are 5 things I'm really proud of? I'm really excited about. I really want the employer to know. What are some ways I've made impact? What are maybe some processes or procedures that you've done? And then lastly, I want us all to remember, if they're paying you, you added value some type of way. And so to your point, Kenneth, sometimes we think, oh, I didn't do anything, or I was just a part of the team, or I just trained a couple of new people. If you have a job, if they're giving you money, you're adding value. And so think about how does your role play into the bigger picture and claim those wins as well. Can I share another example about that really quick? And then that's what I have for the stories.
Yeah, please do.
So for example, in one of my roles is I was working in volunteer management, right? And the role of the volunteer management is to create these events for corporations to come in and feel really good about helping out for a cause. After they contribute, right? So that goes into fundraising because now they're bought into the mission, they've sent their volunteers, and they are now sending $1,000 checks, $1 million checks. So I'm claiming that win, right? So I supported workforce development programs that helped our company to earn $2 million because virtually, right, I did that. And so really think about, I created partnerships that generated X amount of dollars. I created engagement opportunities that supported, 50 community partners, which, increased engagement, increased funding, increased X, Y, and Z. So really think about, sit down and think about what do you do on a daily basis and how does that add value to the larger organization? And those are the stories you want to tell.
And you spoke about something earlier, like keeping a rolling list, right? So I think it's really important that you keep a list of the things that you were involved in with your organization, ways that you added value and or saved the organization time and or money. And you keep that list and you continue to update your resume, even if you're not looking for opportunities right then, but still continue to update your resume. People start to forget what they accomplished 6 months ago, 8 months ago, right? So that's an important point.
And these stories are also going to be helpful on your performance evaluations, right? Because you're going to sit down at the end of the year and they're going to want to know, why should they pay you more money? So you're going to pull out your handy list that you use for your resume, and you want to share that same list and that impact with your employer to help you to also gain raises. These stories are also really helpful when you're doing your elevator pitch. So in 30 seconds, tell me about yourself, right? I am an engaged professional. I use social media tools to increase brand engagement and build social relationships. And again, I'm just using this WHO example, right? So once you understand your story, it allows you to share, talk about yourself on LinkedIn, talk about yourself when you are emailing recruiters. So these stories, are like the gift that keeps on giving.
Hey, let's talk about that because we had a question that came into the Q&A. And also, by the way, the list of action verbs, there's a link that the National Urban League team has dropped into the chat function that gives you a list of action verbs. So please feel free to click that link and make sure you save that information for use as you prepare your resume for the upcoming virtual career fair on February 15th, hosted by the National Urban League. All right, I have a question for you regarding LinkedIn. We had a question in the Q&A, and the question is it acceptable to download your LinkedIn profile as your resume to use for an application?
No, okay. You want to use that in a Word document and you want to use it in a PDF. Now, here's why I say no. You just don't, I don't 100% know if the way that they are printing it or downloading it is readable in the ATS scanning system. I know for a fact they read PDFs and then they read your like a Word doc. But here's also the reason why I say no, because it's not going to be catered. That's going to be a general resume that you just use, right, to promote yourself. But the goal here, again, is you want every time that you apply to a role, I know we hate it, I know it's time consuming, but you have to update it, again, according to what that employer is looking for. And you can't do that with the general one-size-fits-all resume. So I'm going to say no.
No, what I lost the question in the chat, so I don't know who asked that question, but listen, to all that are listening, we're going to be able to answer that question next week because we're doing the LinkedIn Labs Digital Career Success Series on the 15th. So come back next week, join us, get that LinkedIn information, and they'll definitely explain how to best leverage LinkedIn in your professional journey. So we are providing information for everybody that needs it. Virtual Career Fair next week, LinkedIn Labs next week. So definitely come back. 2 weeks from now on the 15th.
And these stories, again, when you go into a career fair, right, you want to have, again, look at who is on the employer list. You want to look at what roles they have, right, that you want, that you qualify for. And then when you show up to that space, you want to share, again, that specific story to that specific employer about that specific role, right? And that's what's going to get them to say, oh, I have to call this person. I have to get connected with them or apply today. But if you're just like, I'm looking for a job, I'm in software, I like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And okay, it's a tight market. And so when you craft your stories, you're able to explain, I have an interest in software. I worked in the profession for 5 years. I'm really good at these tools, and the impact I make is X, Y, and Z. I see that you're hiring for a role as a, data analyst or a software analyst, and I think my X, Y, and Z skills would be a great benefit to you. Like, what's the process? What's the follow-up? So again, your story, you're going to continue to craft it and develop it based on who you're talking to and what roles you're applying for.
All right, let's move on.
So I do this for work. I do this for myself. I have done this for myself for 10 years. I graduated in 2008. I'll tell myself my age, and I have had 10 different careers with 1 degree. And I just use these transferable skills and I just keep rinsing and repeating. So that is really, if you're looking for a transition, if you're looking for tips, you just want to connect on anything about careers and transitions, stay connected to me, YolandaMcCleary.com. I'm really active on LinkedIn, Yolanda McCleary, and then social media, Yolanda Knows Resumes. And let's engage, keep the conversation going. Because there's money to be made, there's jobs out here, you got to just learn the rules. And that's what we're here to teach you today.
Yolanda McCleary, you're career transition coach, and a lot of people are transitioning with all the layoffs that are taking place. So I think the skill set that you bring to the table is of extreme value. Thank you so very much. We're going to come back to you during the Q&A segment.
Look forward to it. Thanks so much.
Brooklyn is in the building. Fresh with my man, Curtis Cox of Curtis Careers, LLC. Curtis, Yolanda left a lot of information.
She did, man. She brought in some good
out
content.
Your deck, but I think you got it.
Listen, man, shout out to Yolanda. She brought out some great content. And listen, I took some notes too. Like I said, this is a learning experience for me as well. But, shout out to Yolanda, great work. And, that who method is really powerful. And, that's a method that folks can really, really have a good foundation on. So shout outs to you, Yolanda, great stuff. So yeah, we're going to talk about, some key points in terms of like the ATS and, how to really, just look for some things on your resume, right? Like your physical resume, just looking at some things that are going to be critical for employers to even notice you when you send it out. You know what I'm saying? When you send it out in the network. So we're going to cover that really quickly. So if you go to the next slide.
Hey, Curtis, so keep us from a layman foundation, definitely walk us through what the ATS is.
Absolutely. So the ATS is basically an applicant tracking system, right? And this is, layman's terms, this is a software that employers use to scan resumes, right? To see if resumes have key specific words that is tailored to what they're looking for in an ideal candidate, right? So if they're looking for someone, for example, and this is just random example, I don't think this is out there, but if they have in their job description, okay, you got to be able to wash clothes, right? You got to make sure that your resume has wash clothes, those exact words, right? So that's the key with these ATS systems, right? It's software that is very advanced, and nowadays with AI and everything that's going on, these ATS platforms and software are very advanced, right? So they're looking for key specific words or words similar to the words that they're looking for, right? This is how they're able to filter through hundreds and hundreds of resumes, right? Because believe it or not, a lot of these companies get hundreds of resumes a day, right? And especially now with the market that we're in right now, with all the layoffs, especially in the tech space and some in the finance space as well, yeah, they're going to be using this ATS platform like even as we speak, they're using it, right? So this is like ongoing. Go ahead, Kenneth.
Yeah, and with companies using the ATS, right, the applicant tracking systems, it's key to rate high in the system. And the one way to do that is to keyword optimize your resume, right? I had I had a client company
Yep.
that once told me, she said, when she'll post a job on a Friday, and on Monday, when she comes into the office, she may have 500 applicants, but she starts her phone calls at the top 5, right? So the system will rate all 500 according to how they match the actual position description. And she starts at the top 5 and starts making her phone calls. So literally, if she sets up 3 interviews, by the time she gets to number 5, everybody else is just sitting at home waiting until she follows through with her process. So the applicant tracking systems are important, but also network to your fullest to definitely get on the radar of some of these hiring influencers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's how employers are really setting up their schedules, right? You know, they run through the ATS, they see that there is some alignment and some matches. And right off the bat, they're going to start scheduling those phone interviews, those virtual interviews, right? And just to see if there's alignment, right? With what they're looking for and with your resume, right? And if things go well on that first interview, they'll bring you in, you know, for in-person or even for a group interview. So they have a process, you know, within their community, right? Employers, but they use that ATS like right off the jump. So what we're going to talk about today is the electronic resume, right? I want to share some key tips on that when you upload your resume on LinkedIn, or even when you upload it on, like, say, sites like Indeed and, you know what I mean, like Idealist, like these different platforms, because that's when we'll go into the resume SEO, and then we'll cover some more, you know, perspectives on the ATS, and then how to make resumes ATS friendly, right? That's the key, right? That's the name of the game, right? Getting your resume ATS friendly. So we go to the next slide. We're going to break down what the electronic resume is, right? So I know we talked about earlier, like saving your resume as a Word doc or a PDF doc, right? That's true. But what I've noticed through some of my research is it's easier for the ATS, for example, to read your resume if it's a Word doc. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't send it as a PDF, but this is why you have to read that description carefully, because they'll typically tell you send a resume as like a doc. Like, you got to read, like they say on a contract, the fine print, right? So if they say send your resume as a Word doc, definitely don't send it as a PDF. That's already telling you right then and there, they're probably going to use an ATS, and they're going to scan, or at least try to scan, your resume as a Word doc. So typically, this is like some of the basic mistakes folks do, is that they'll send their resume as a PDF. The job description says send it as a Word doc, and automatically out right there and then you're out of the running because you didn't follow instructions, right? So make sure you read that description carefully. If they say send it as a Word doc or PDF, I would say safest bet, send it as a Word doc. If you want to send it as a PDF, that's fine, but make sure it says that in the job description, right? Another key thing here is common header terms, right? This is huge, right? So what this means is when you lay out your resume, common header terms is work experience, job summary, right? Skills, right? Education, right? Those are basics that you should have on your resume, right? As header terms. If you don't have those header terms, guess what's going to happen? Your resume is probably not going to get a high scan, right? It's probably going to get tossed, because those are basic things that they're looking for on their resume, on those resumes, right? When they run through that ATS, if you don't have those words, the system is going to assume that you have no education experience if you don't put education, right? So even if you put college, right, and not the word education, that could put you out of the running, right? So make sure you put education, job summary, work experience, right? Some people just put experience, right, and miss out the word work. No, put work experience, because again, the software they're scanning, they just see the word experience. They can't delineate what does that mean. So again, when you miss little keywords, your resume is out of the running. And as crazy as this sounds, but you got to be very detailed, very specific, right? Another key point, don't combine sections, right? So what that means is education and skills, don't combine them. Have them separate, have their own sections, right? Because again, when the ATS is running through your resume, it's gonna get confused, right? It's going to assume that this is a skill section or this is a education section, or they may not even read they may not even read it as such. They may read it as something else. So make sure that you separate your sections, right? Put them in the proper spaces, right? So again, work experience, right? Education, skills, right? Community activities. That's another common header. Like separate these things. Don't combine your skills with education, which is a typical mistake people do on their resume. They combine the skills with the education, right? But again, separate it, right? Because again, you want to show the ATS that you're versatile in your skills. It's going to read it as all of your skill sets, right? They're
questions as well while Curtis is working out his Wi-Fi situation. So it's been really interesting. Thank you guys for dropping your chats and questions into the Q&A. We sincerely appreciate it. Curtis, are you back?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Let's go.
Yeah. So, yeah, what was the last thing you heard? Sorry about that, the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, you were speaking about keywords.
Yeah, so the keywords again, last thing I said was don't combine your sections, right? Don't combine the sections, right? Meaning work experience, education, skills. You want to have each section separate. You don't want to combine your sections, right? So that's what that means. And then put skills in the work history. This is kind of a new practice now. I would say, you know, this is a good kind of way to show, you know, employers that you acquired some new skills at your job, but make sure you also put the achievements from the skills that you've learned, right? You learned these new skills and this is how you applied those skills and this was the end result, right? Kind of like the STAR method where you just list out those objectives and you list out all the results. So if you've acquired specific skills, whether it's through professional development training or, you know, service learning activities, whatever it is, and you acquired some new skills and you're using those skills to implement, you know, within your work, yeah, highlight that, but also just as importantly, highlight the results from those new skills that you've learned, if that makes sense. So you can go to the next slide. So this is the what is the resume SEO, right? So we've heard of SEO in terms of Google and different, you know, search engine platforms. So basically what this means is when you upload your resume, for example, on like, you know, job search sites like Indeed, LinkedIn, they have their own systems, right? They have their own systems, and basically those systems are going to tell employers on that same platform that this may be a resume you want to look at, right? So there is a SEO system within these job search platforms, right? Folks don't tell you about this, but this is what happens, right? So this is why you see folks upload their resume on LinkedIn, because they understand that there is a SEO even on LinkedIn where it's going to, that's why, for example, you get like suggestions, right? That's why they added that new feature of for a person to add on their profile picture, open to work, right? That's also a SEO system, right? So now companies are going to get notified by LinkedIn, for example, saying, hey, this person is open to work. Hey, this person skill sets may match what you're looking for, right? So these are real life examples of SEO, right? So this is why it's important to have, for example, on your LinkedIn profile, a catchy headline, right? Companies are looking for specific individuals with like a catchy headline. So an example would be aspiring engineer, aspiring IT professional, right? That's something that folks usually put on their LinkedIn profile and even their resume, depending on the industry that they're going into, right? So leaving a little catchy headline to draw attention. But again, you got to be careful with this because again, this all depends on the employer. This all depends on the platform you're using. There's all key factors. But if you're in a space where you could use a catchy headline, especially on LinkedIn, that's going to draw attention to you, right? With potential employers, definitely use a catchy headline, right? Use relevant keywords. Again, use keywords that are basically the same words that you see on a job description. You want to put that on your resume, right? Especially on LinkedIn, right? Use keywords. So your bullet points on your LinkedIn profile or your LinkedIn resume, as I would say, let it match those job description words that are on LinkedIn as well, right? So if you see job descriptions on LinkedIn, right, when you click the job section, right, make sure you use the same words that that job description is using, because again, LinkedIn has its own SEO, right? So when you put those words, right, on your profile, it's going to draw attention to you with these potential employers, right? They're going to get notifications about you. They're going to get notifications about folks that are in their area, right? So be clear on that. Go ahead, Ken, if you have a thought.
So please be mindful to our audience. We're doing the LinkedIn Labs on February 15th, but from a resume perspective, the resume SEO piece, keywords are still extremely important as you navigate the ways to, as Yolanda spoke to, having multiple resumes for each opportunity that you apply to. Some people are going to call the job an account rep, and some might call it a customer service rep. You're going to need to adjust your resume accordingly, just to allow your resume to navigate the applicant tracking system. So I know we spoke about catchy headlines and things of that nature, but really it's about staying in line, as Curtis has mentioned, with what you're seeing on the actual position description.
Exactly. And and again, I've seen resumes where people use a catchy headline, like I said, aspiring entrepreneur, or aspiring, chef, aspiring chef, right? Sous chef, right? I've seen these headlines on a resume, right? So depending on your industry, depending on where you are, you could use these catchy headlines. Another quick tip too, and this is ATS related, don't have a header and footer on your resume, right? Don't have any information in the header and footer section. This is a big mistake that folks do on their resumes. They'll put their contact info in that header section. The ATS runs through it. Most ATSs are not going to see that information, right? So make sure when you physically do a resume, make sure you don't have a header and footer section, right? Most ATSs, they'll run through that system. They're not gonna read what's on there, right? They're only gonna read what's in that main section of that document, right? So that's a key thing to remember. Lastly, another thing that folks can do on their resume is add a hyperlink, right, to your website or articles that you've written, right? That's another key strategy that folks are doing now, right? So we have a lot of bloggers in this, folks are going into blogging and podcasting, right, in their respective industries. If that's you, put that hyperlink in that head section of your resume, right? So, but again, you're not putting that in the header section, you're putting that below that, right? So when you have your name, your email, your contact number, you could put a hyperlink there, right? Also, what I've also seen is folks put their LinkedIn hyperlink there, right? Because again, when employers click on your resume, right, and they see that hyperlink, 9 times out of 10, they're going to click on it, right? They'll run your stuff through the ATS, but they'll also physically open your document and see if there's hyperlinks there. If there's hyperlinks there, they'll click it just to see, just to get a more feel of you. And it's an easier way for them to see if you have a LinkedIn profile. Chances are, if you don't add a hyperlink, is no big deal, but chances are they're going to do their own due diligence and do a research to see if you have a LinkedIn profile. I personally have gone through this when I've applied for jobs. I've noticed I got notifications of certain individuals and certain employers, right, of those same companies that I apply to, right? As soon as I send my resume out to a company, I notice like maybe a day or two later, I get a notification that someone viewed my profile. Who viewed my profile? The person from that same company, right? Because they're searching, they're seeing what your social media presence is, right? So you can make it easy for them by putting your link on your resume. You don't have to, but these are some like more modern, up-to-date strategies that folks are using. If you're not going to do it, it's totally fine, but rest assured, if they're on LinkedIn and if you're on LinkedIn, put it like this: if they're on LinkedIn, they're going to see if you're on LinkedIn. Okay, that's just the bottom line. If they see that you're on LinkedIn, they're going to try and check out your profile and see if there's any alignment with the resume you sent versus what's on your profile. So again, I know you're going to talk about LinkedIn later at another session, but I just want folks to understand, when you put this on your physical resume, these are some up-to-date strategies folks are using. And again, you don't have to do it, but again, it's still a helpful strategy. So we can move to the next slide. So yeah, just to recap what the ATS is, nearly all companies use this employment software to handle the application process, right? It's a numbers game. At the end of the day, they get hundreds of resumes, they get thousands of resumes, some companies, and they're running through hundreds and thousands of resumes. So again, using keywords is the name of the game, using words that they've used in their description. Lastly, another quick tip, the system does not read text boxes, tables, right? Coloring photos or graphics, right? So just keep that in mind, right? So if you have any of those things on your resume, take it out. Right? Take those things out.
That's a valid point, because we're in the day and age of templates, and people often go with the plug and play model. And sometimes that's the reason they're being pushed out of the applicant tracking system. So I'm glad you mentioned that. That's really important as it relates to resumes and the success of your resume navigating that ATS.
Right. And I know it's hard because maybe you feel so proud of a project you did, and it has this table of all the success and all the information on that project you did, and you're passionate about it. And I get it, but don't put it on your resume, because if you do, ATS is gonna spit you out. It's gonna say, nope, this is not the resume to look at, right? So just be mindful of not having boxes, tables, photos, graphics. If you're in an industry like graphic design and, like any kind of design, career, typically, folks will recommend you sending a separate document, like a portfolio of your work, right? They're not going to ask you really to put your work on a resume. They're going to ask you to send a separate file, a separate document to do that, right? So just be mindful of that. The ATS, it's a word search. At the end of the day, the ATS is a word search. They're looking for specific words. They're looking for specific terms. They're looking for how your headline, your headers are put together. So make sure you have those keywords on there. But again, no tables, no charts, and no graphics, no logos, please. You don't want to disqualify yourself from that opportunity. So we can go to the next slide. And I think I'm pretty much done. Yeah. So I hope my information was very helpful. This is my contact info. You can find me on LinkedIn, Curtis Cox. Also, you can find me on IG at Curtis Careers, and that's my contact email there as well. Kenneth, man, I appreciate this time. This has been great. And yeah, again, no tables, y'all. No tables, no charts. Please, I'm telling you.
You don't have to tell me you appreciate the time yet. I need you to knock out some of these questions for us too. Curtis Cox,
of course.
London McCleary. Let's jump into the Q&A. Listen, man, you both provided some exceptional information to everybody that's on, and I'm sure it'll be of value as they go and register and connect and interact with employers next week. I'm sorry, on the 15th at the virtual career fair hosted by the National Urban League. All right, let's jump into the questions, right? So one of the questions I saw in here that I thought was really interesting. So the question is, how do you align your resume to meet the hiring manager's needs when you are trying to break into a different career path? For example, I want to work as a legal assistant, but I have diverse contract work experience, but I've never worked in the legal field before. How do you, Yolanda, let's go to you. We haven't heard from you in a second. How do you adjust your resume for a career pivot?
Absolutely. So one is setting expectations. It's easier to stay in the same industry, in the same roles, right? So when you're looking to differentiate, I want to do a lot of research on specifically, again, the company, what they're looking for, right? Their values, some things they're involved in, but then also looking at the role. And the role is going to give you some roles and responsibilities, right? And so although you haven't done them, to say in the legal area, maybe you've still done them. And so you want to, I say, go through the job description, and I take a highlighter. That's Siri. I take a highlighter and I highlight all the things they're asking for that I can do, right? And then I want you to go through and then put them on your resume when you've identified where you've done that. So if they're looking for data analytics, maybe they're looking for problem solving, maybe they're looking for working with people, relationship building, identify what they're looking for that you have, and then highlight that on your resume to show where you've done that and how you've done that, even if it hasn't been in that same industry. That makes sense.
Definitely good feedback. Listen, the game when you're looking to make a career pivot is transferable skills. You want to focus in on your transferable skills, those skills that you can bring across industries that add value. Focus in on that. Be mindful, like Yolanda was speaking about prior, that who situation. Tell your story about how you've had impact, saving a company or earning a company money and or time. So use that where you've added value, use your transferable skills, and I think you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Curtis, any
Yeah. No, yeah, real quick, yeah. And I love what Yolanda said, but also again, using those same words, right? So the job description says looking for someone that has experience, with relationship building. You want to make sure one of those bullet points has those two words in it, right?
Yeah.
So that's like basic practical example is, oh, and this is just an example of a bullet point. It's like, okay, well, was able to build relationships with X amount of colleagues for a service project, right? So, or a community service activity, right? So using those two key words, right? So looking at their description of that person and at least using 2 to 3 words from those descriptions, from the jobs description, and replicating that on your bullet points, right? So that's like a key basic strategy. You see relationship building, put that in one of your bullet points, relationship building. If you see networking and communication, use networking and communication. Use those exact words.
Yeah. And to that point, Curtis, that's a great point. I would steal stuff. I mean, I'm not say that word. I would take it and use what they say and just put my own couple of words in there. So if you see a strong bullet that has, like, I've done all of this, well, use that. You don't want to use it verbatim, but you want to switch it around a little bit so you can gather those keywords.
Great. One of the questions was also, should you use bullet points or paragraphs? And I just want to jump in here. I know people have used both formats, and this is after you've listed your job title, but do you want to follow that with bullet points or a paragraph? So there was a study done by the Ladders. The Ladders is, they're a job board, but they focus in on jobs of 100K plus, right? And what they found is that recruiters love white space. So the bullets provide more white space. It's easier on the eyes. So their recruiters were reading more of the bullets than they were of the paragraphs. So just keep that in mind on how your resume looks cosmetically. It definitely will have an impact on the actual hiring managers reading it. So, and if you guys have any feedback on the bullet paragraph conversation as well, I welcome it.
Yeah, just the same. Just think about yourself. If you see a bunch of text or email with a whole bunch of words, you don't want to read it. You skim through it. And so make it easy. And then also, right, the recruiters are only going to spend, let's say 10 seconds, 3 seconds. You want to make sure that everything their eye catches is a win, is an accomplishment, and then that white space, and then those keywords, it's hard to see if it's a whole bunch of text. So bullets make it easy for the reader.
All right, let's jump into this question as well. Oh, wow, I just lost it. So they were saying, how do you, Curtis, I'm gonna lean on you here. How do you list the skill section if you're suggesting that one not use tables? That's a question here.
Oh, so just kind of list it again, the skill section, just kind of highlight in bullet points some of those skills that you have accomplished, and also where'd you get that, where'd you got those skills from, right? If it was from a training, if it was from a workshop, you want to highlight those moments, right? Typically people will put like, the year or even the dates where they've acquired those skills or acquired that training. But keep it simple, bullet format. Again, skills underneath that, your bullet points on those specific skills that you've accomplished and the date, right? The year and the date where you've, learned those skills.
Yeah, I think, hiring managers like to know that people are continuous learners. And a lot of time they can look at your skills and see that you've acquired maybe new skills like, Web 3.0, right? So that's a skill that somebody has acquired recently, right? Chat GPT, whatever it is. So they can kind of take a look at that and say, oh, wow, this is a person that keeps current on new technologies and things of that nature. And people want to work with individuals that bring that skill set. So I appreciate that. All right, another question into the chat. What are your thoughts on font sizes and fonts?
That's good. I mean, I'm
I'm
a
gonna
little
stay away from that one. I'm giving that to you too.
okay. I'm a little old school. Times New Roman. I mean, typically you want your fonts between, I would say, 10, 11. Um, Times New Roman is tried and true. Put it like that. What's interesting about the fonts too is you got to be careful with this, right? And do some more research on this. This is a fantastic question. Align this with the ATS, right? Are there specific fonts that the ATS can read? And this is a real thing. ATS can read fonts more easily than other fonts. So if you use a more modern and more, let's say, newer font, typically what may happen is that employer's ATS may not be up to date on reading that font. And now, if your resume is difficult to read for that ATS, you've already disqualified you out. The most common tried and true font is Times New Roman. That's like fundamental clutch, right? I'm using sports analogies here. Just keep it simple. You know what I'm saying? This is like the free throw of resumes, like Times New Roman. That's it. You use these advanced fonts that are, made by a designer 2 years ago. You kind of run the risk of not being read on the ATS. And here's another thing: if you use like a really, really new font and you upload it on these job search platforms, when they extract your resume, they may find some difficulty, right? Because again, the job search engine on that website is different from theirs, the employers. So there may be some funky stuff going on between that transition of download. So again, Times New Roman. I know that sounds kind of cliche, but that is tried and true.
Let me come in real quick, Yolanda. I have a question for you because they're talking about the who method here. So is it still okay to give a brief statement of your duties and responsibilities in addition to your achievements, or should you omit duties and responsibilities altogether and just put in the who bullet point method?
Yep. So no, we're not doing no duties. You are a winner, and we are going to show all your wins. Now you can include your duties, right? Because essentially what in responsibilities is what you do, but you don't want to say responsible for duties include, right? So I would stay away from those sentences. And here's why I would say don't include duties. Some people just give a running list. Like I did this, 5 things in one bullet. You want to break those things down. So if you want to include your duties, think about what duty it is that you want to talk about. And then you want to use that action verb. You want to describe how you did that duty. You want to describe the tools you use to complete that task. And then you want to include the outcome. So you can still use your duties, but you want to phrase it still in that who method.
Okay, we're going to try to get maybe 2 more questions. And Curtis, can you give an example of a catchy headline?
Catchy headline again. Motivated, program manager, right? Aspiring tech professional, enthusiastic job developer. You know what I mean? Like something where you have an action verb and then you have like a title that is, again, it matches what that employer is looking for, right? So if they're using the word manager, use manager, right? If they're using the word, coordinator, use coordinator, right? But use like an action word: dedicated, enthusiastic, ambitious, right? Motivated, determined. You know what I mean? Like nothing too wonky or crazy, like, you know what I mean? But yeah, use very catchy, very kind of, inspiring. They want to see that you are, again, motivated. You're committed, like, and that's another key one: committed. Things that. Go ahead.
So keep in mind that these are probably more acceptable in creative spaces. If you're applying to traditional financial industry jobs, publishing jobs, things of that nature, those industries tend to shy away from some of the catchiness, and they just want you to kind of deliver a straight line on what it is that you do, right? So just be mindful. If you're in a creative environment, the catchy headline may work much better than your traditional work environments. All right, you know what? Let's just move. I'm going to get one question in because I was looking at this And I think it's something that we need to speak about.
Hey, the questions are flowing. I love it.
Yeah, I'm seeing, right? Hey, you know what? I'm actually going to put something out here. We're not going to get to some of these questions. If you guys want to connect with me for the 2 hours after the show, send me questions on LinkedIn, and I will do everything in my efforts to answer them. I'm going to block the next 2 hours off to do that because I feel bad about us not getting to some of these questions. All right, last question. I'm seeing a lot of IT, cybersecurity, and finance folks steer away from including their phone numbers on their resume due to ID theft. I think, do you guys have any thoughts on that whatsoever?
If they don't have your number, how they gonna call you? I would stay away from addresses, but telephone number, when they print your resume out, they're gonna need some way to contact you, so that might run into a difficulty.
Curtis?
Yeah, this may sound funny, but I agree. I mean, if they're having some hacking issues, you can't even put a phone number. Is that where you want to work? I don't know. I mean,
and look, so you have to be solution oriented, right? Maybe It's best to just grab a Google number and put that on your resume. And that way, just, monitor that actual voicemail box. But that may be a solution for you if you're concerned about someone having your actual phone number. So be solution based. I haven't heard that. I believe it takes place, but I haven't heard it. But yeah, they're going to need your phone number. Although you'll probably receive an email, but they're probably going to want to see your phone number as well.
But wait, real quick but again, see now, if you do that, then you run the risk. You run the risk of the ATS dismissing you anyway, because again, companies will program their ATS to look for specific things. So if you don't put your phone number there, then it's like, to you, how they gonna call you? So, this resume doesn't have a phone number. Bye. So you're gone. So
I would imagine if you don't include a phone number, you probably will get kicked out of the ATS. I agree. Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah. All right. We did it again. So please stay connected with me. As I mentioned, listen, just hit me up. I'm going to stick around for 2 hours on LinkedIn, and anybody that comes through that says they were at the Digital Career Success Series and wants to ask a question that we didn't get to, I'm going to answer it. And if I can't answer it, I'm tracking down Yolanda and Curtis. So
please do. I'll be checking the chat too. Send me that, at me in the post if you do a post or whatever, and then I'll join in as well.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So this is my contact information. Let's go to the next slide, please. Listen, as I mentioned, we will do it again on the 15th. I kept saying next week. I don't want February to go that fast. It's Black History Month. So we'll do it again on the 15th, Wednesday, February 15th, 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll have a special conversation. LinkedIn's VP of Global Diversity and Inclusion and Belonging, Rosanna Durfee. You hear that? The National Urban League's bringing out LinkedIn's VP of Global Diversity, Inclusion and Belonging to talk to you about LinkedIn. So definitely register today and tune in for that one. Also, I keep talking about this virtual career fair. We set this up right. We had people last week talking about coaching. We have people this week, Yolanda and Curtis, talking about your resumes. And all of this is in preparation for the virtual career fair. Join us for our annual Black History Month virtual career fair, Wednesday, February 15th, for opportunities to connect with recruiters of Fortune 500 companies, on-the-spot interviews, and live interactive roundtable webinars. It's a whole day thing. We're doing this from 12 to 4 next week. Curtis and Yolanda, jump on, join us, and add some value to the site. But save that date for us, and please come out for our Black History Month virtual career fair. We appreciate you. It's the National Urban League. On behalf of the National Urban League, I'd like to thank the team today. Kanji, Danya, Tiffany came in early and helped us check in. Of course, Wanda Jackson, fearless leader, helping us get through this Digital Career Success Series platform and glowingly. But also today, I just want to thank Yolanda McCleary. Phillies in the building, go Eagles. And Curtis Cox, Curtis Careers, LLC, Brooklyn's own. Thank you for joining us today. You guys were great. I really appreciate it. And of course, thank all of you that stayed on for the entire session, communicated in the chat, asked some great questions. We do it again February 15th. Please check in and join us. I'm Kenneth L. Johnson, East Coast Executives, National Urban League Digital Career Success Series host. Thank you.